The objective is to have a Palestinian state on the borders of 1967 that will live in
peace and security.
The lesson of history is that peace and security do not come easily.
Peace and stability
Must decide whether we are serious about peace and security. To recognize Israel's legitimacy and its right to exist in peace and security. That's how we will find new pathways to peace and security. That is the work that we must do.
In peace and security.
Peace and security and coexistence.
A movement towards peace. If we have this triangle, economy, security, and peace, then peace can succeed.
It is morning. You wake up.
Hey, come on.
You greet your loved ones. You grab the morning paper. And although it seems like any ordinary day, it isn't. For one extraordinary reason.
A historic and unprecedented event has occurred. The question of whether or not we are alone in the universe has been answered.
This is so cool.
More ships have just arrived over India, England, and Germany.
I really don't think they flew 90 billion light years to come down here and start a fight.
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all!
They're using our own satellites against us. The clock is ticking.
It's over.
Years from now, they're gonna ask, where were you when they took over the planet?
We'll be fine. I promise. It's over. I'm sorry, but it's over. I think it's time.
Your faith in us, but never in yourselves. From here, the fight will be your own.
We're running out of time. We're running out of clues. And there's an invasion coming. So really, we need to go right now. War has started.
My dad said they'd come. He said, we ain't alone. He said, one day we'd find them. Or they'd find us.
How desperate are you? And you call on such lost creatures to defend you. Our enemy can take any shape.
You have made me very desperate.
They could be anywhere.
We're not a team. We're a time bomb.
This is nothing we were ever trained for.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Revelation Per Minute with the radio preacher man. Some people just don't understand why I am the way I am. but I'm a radio preaching man. Wow, folks, that song rocks. Amen. Welcome to Radio Preacher Man, Liberty Broadcasting Network, Revelations per Minute. Wow, I got the chills all up on me, the Jesus bumps, man. Whoo, just hearing that song. You know, later in the song, he says, Poopy, what is that? Hey, there's another verse that I really like, but anyway, on with the show, ladies and gentlemen. All right, today we got a guest with us, and he is from NAR2012.com. That's the name of his website, and his name is Bill Fowell, Fawell, and he's written a book over the last 2 years called New American Revolution. Amen. I like that revolution part. New American Revolution, the constitutional overthrow of the United States government, rather. And, well, I had a short talk with Bill, and we're going to have him on the show here briefly. And he's going to enlighten us as to why we need to do this by the Constitution and this type of thing. And with that said, Maria is our guest here by chance. Maria? Oh.
Hey.
Hello. Is Bill with us?
He is.
Marvelous, marvelous. All right, then patch him through. Amen, and we'll continue. Yes. Yes, how are you, Bill?
Fine, Brian. How are you today?
Man, I am doing great. I'm doing great. I just, that song on the opening, it gets me excited, you know, every time.
You got to keep your blood up when you're on the radio.
You know what? You sound like my wife now. She's like, boy, you better snap to and get awake before you get on there. But yeah, it's good to be. And I was asking God to anoint this broadcast, and I'm sure he will. So I told the folks just now that you spent the last 2 years writing this book, New American Revolution, the constitutional overthrow of the United States government. And I think that, wow, at first I was a little leery. I'm like, wow, that's kind of spooky stuff, to the subtitle and all, you know. But speaking to you, you know, earlier today really, really relaxed me a little bit on the subject. And so I'm feeling much better about it. So let's, wow. What got you to this point to write this book, Bill? Do you want to talk a little bit about
Yeah, sure. You know, this, Brian, I probably started about 44 years ago. I was 14 at the time, and I can tell you the exact date. It was June 5th, 1968. And at that time, that's the day that Bobby Kennedy was murdered, about 2 months after Martin Luther King had been murdered. And everyone kept talking about is that you know, these are just happenstance. And on the back of the assassination of John Kennedy and the 22nd November in '63, it's not that I was brought up in a Republican family, and it wasn't so much that I was a big fan of the Kennedys, but what happened is that I felt like everyone telling me it was okay and these are just unrelated circumstance, I just couldn't buy it anymore.
Wow.
And so what I had to do, Brian, I had to take everything that I knew and heard and understood up to that point and just set it aside. And I had to start rebuilding my world from scratch so I would know what the truth is. Because everything I was reading out of the newspapers and what people were telling me, I had determined was anything but the truth. So that started me on a kind of a voyage, turned me into rebel like so many of my generation and us baby boomers.
And you were 14 at the time that you got this revelation. Yeah, I guess. Watching all these world leaders get killed, it would make you wonder, eh?
Well, that and, you know,
what's
just,
going on?
Yeah, how everything was happening. And as I watched, you know, that was Vietnam was going on.
Yeah.
Ellsberg. We left the gold standard, and something just told me that Social Security and the government spending like that, I just knew it couldn't go on, and I could either sit there and conform my life to a series of what deep down I knew were lies, or I could keep moving along through life, but maintaining my studies and digging and searching and developing a modus operandi that I used to determine what was truth and what was not the truth, and building my world around it. And so that's what I did. I continued to work. I was for a while I was down at the Mercantile Exchange in commodities. Then I was in real estate. Then I had a demolition company. Then I got into real estate development. And lo and behold, about 2008, everything stopped in real estate. So I found myself out of work. So I just got kind of angry, and I said, "Well, it's time." I felt, I felt a guiding hand of the Lord. Bill, this is what I kept you around for. Start doing what you're supposed to be doing. So I started writing the book, and there are probably 3 or 4 times when I thought I was done. Then the Lord would shove another book under my nose, and I'd read it, and I'd say, "Wow, I got another whole chapter to write."
Well, in fact,
the last one, that's how the chapter 4 on conspiracy and the conspirators, who runs our government, evolved.
I think I started having a wake-up call probably about the same time, around 2007 or 8. Started really getting a wake-up call and like, well, what am I going to do? I need to answer my call to the ministry, and so God started working with me, same as He did with you about that same time, Bill, on writing your book.
How could you avoid it?
I came home one night, me and the wife, and we were reading in the book of Matthew 24, and it was talking about how God says to the one servant, "Well done, good and faithful servant," and to the other He says, "Thou slothful and lazy servant, go out there and with the others and weep and gnash your teeth." And I said to her, I cannot go to heaven and not have done what He wanted me to do. Amen. It became urgent, Bill. And I think that's where you're at with your book. You know what I mean?
It's something
time.
I feel like I've been doing for 44 years, and it was time for, it was time. Well, the revolution arrived, is basically what happened, Brian. The definition of a revolution, historically, is a governmental bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And that's what we hit.
We're about there.
Well, we've been there for a while. In 2008, basically it was a coup of Wall Street and banking. It essentially took over the budget of the United States government. And what they did not control after that point, they had finished off purchasing by buying the Congress and the presidency, which they've always owned. And that's what, the book, it evolved. And once I got done writing the book, I said, okay, how is this book really going to change things? And that's when I started, okay, how is this going to apply? That's when I came up with the petition to force Congress to take back its constitutional duties. That would serve as a litmus test to empower all 162 million registered American voters to go in and elect a new Congress this November 6th. We can get to that later as we move through here. But
wow, what about these 4 stages of revolution, Bill?
Yeah, well, that's an important point and kind of a benchmark for your listeners, so they can watch what's happening and compare to different revolutions around the world. Because not only is the United States and the government in a state of bankruptcy and forcing its people into bankruptcy, but the entire world. Right. And the 4 steps occur. The first step, by the time everyone realizes that a revolution is occurring, that is the end of the first step. Crane Britton wrote a book called Anatomy of Revolution back in the 70s. And he identified these 4 stages. And the first stage is what he called turning of the intellectuals. And that is that point where all your personalities, all your civic leaders, radio, TV, movie stars, politicians, the people that we see every day on the TV or the radio, kind of in unison say this government has lost its ability to govern. You saw that in Egypt back last spring, where the people got together, and it's marked by that moment, in the last moment, when the entire nation comes together and they're unified. And that is the end of the first stage, because here in America, you can see this turning of the intellectuals almost every day, where someone on TV or radio or someone in, a major personality will say, this is crazy, this has got to stop, this has gone on too long. You see it in a lot of the blogs, the market blogs that you see that are a bit more underground. The second stage is when they determine that government can no longer govern, then everyone gets together, the different factions, and they say, okay, we're going to create a new government, and we're going to bring in some new people, because the problem was not the government, it was the people that were running the government. They were bad. So we're going to change those people. We're going to bring in new people, and for a framework, we're going to use the one that we're all familiar with, and that's the existing government. And what happens is that it's not only the people. In fact, it's not as much as the people as it is the institutions in that government. They've changed and evolved, and they've been broken. And now you're bringing people that don't even know how to they don't understand how to operate a broken government. And so they're more likely to fail. And when you put on top of that some of the factions in that coalition government in Sage 2 are there to make sure that government fails.
That's what I was just going to say.
They have their own ideas.
You got to think about the corrupted ones. Yeah.
Well, you see, people talk about. In fact, when I was on George Norrie's Coast to Coast, he said the people that are running this government, they're getting nervous. Yeah, to an extent, but if you're in that kind of a situation, you're